Hey guys, it is Targon back doing another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we are going to do part 2 of my gearing series, and we're going to focus on the sets, alright? So in my prior video, I talked about using stats, like just what stats to look for in general, because a lot of times pieces can be really good on their own without needing to use them in a set. But today we're going to specify what are we looking for with the individual sets. All right, so let's go ahead and get in. I am on my alt account again because I figured it might be a little bit more relatable for you guys in terms of what I have for gear. Um, so sets again, so I had talked about kind of the three main prototype champions. Really there's more, but you have like your support champions, you have your like your buffs, you have your debuff champions, and then you have your nukers, right? um, I'm going to kind of break down more specifically what you would want for each of those, but the main concept still stands. You're going to want some champions to be really tanky, where the whole goal is that they survive, and then you have other champions that are going to just be they need to be landing their debuffs, so you need accuracy and you need survivability. And then you have your damage champions that you want to be getting as many hits in and hit as hard as possible. So the different sets can help you with those endeavors, okay? So I'm not going to cover every set in depth. I'm going to cover just kind of like the main things to look for in the sets. All right, so again, like some sets that I really don't use, there's a lot of sets that I don't really use a whole lot. Um, so like, life, offense, defense, they're great early on, but once you get to mid game, you're not going to use them. Speed is one set that I am always much more forgiving with pieces that aren't quite as good, because I'm always using speed. Another set that is kind of the same way to some extent is perception, because I'm always using perception gear. Early on, I would say you want to apply that same perhaps to accuracy if you don't have a lot of perception gear yet. Um, but try and get some of your factions up there so you can farm perception gear, because it is one of the best sets in the game. I guess some people have even said it's the best. It's right up there in my opinion. All right, um, so we got speed, crit rate, crit damage are kind of like, okay, they're useful. It depends. Like if you're building a champion and you need those stats, it can be useful, but it's not a set that I'm always using. It's more like, oh, here's a really good piece for this champion in this set, and oh, here's another good piece, so we've got the set bonus. So I'm not going to store up too much of that. Accuracy for me at this point is the same way, because I have enough perception, which is accuracy with a boost. So an accuracy set, I'm going to be looking to actually sell most anything that's not like a wow piece, right? Resistance late game is really, really important. Lifesteal earlier on is really important. The value of it goes down substantially kind of after mid game. It's especially good for like earlier PvE, but the idea is that once you get better support champions, people who are able to put shields up, revivers, healers, you don't necessarily need to be healing from the damage that you do. And so you're actually better off then with going with higher stats or different sets to maximize your damage, because you've got other champions that are going to be healing you. Let's see. The kind of a bunch of these I don't really use a whole lot. They all can be useful, I think. Regeneration is a huge one, kind of all throughout the game. I'd say, be much more lenient with your pieces. Um, Shield set, I try to keep a few of these around, but I'm gonna look to sell some of these. Relentless, I'm also a little bit more lenient with, because it's very hard to get Relentless gear, and it's very good, and you use it on a wide variety of champions. Savage gear is great for damage dealers and so forth. So, really kind of all these can be good. I would say The taunting set, I don't really use it. I've never used it. To me, 30% chance to place provoke is like, come on. And then you could just do the 18% for stun, and then you get a stun instead of a provoke, so your provoker's not getting damaged, you know? Retaliation, past early game Fire Knight, I don't really see much use for this. Maybe with certain arena setups, you might consider using Retaliation or Avenging, but in general, I never use these, and Avenging, I never really use it. Potentially, it might be worthwhile doing like an Avenging set in a Go Second Arena with maybe like someone who has a special effect on their A1 or AoE A1, so you can put a bunch of really slow skull crowns in with Avenging sets. Every time they're taking damage, they're just attacking everybody. That might be a viable defense strategy. Stalwart gear, very, very good, especially sort of later on in mid game. If you do not have unkillable or block damage for your clan boss runs, Stalwart is a game changer. I made a mistake early on and just sold it all. I was like, I never use it. I liquidated the entire everything in Stalwart I sold, and then I realized that switching from Lifesteal to Stalwart was going to help me with Clan Boss. And when I did that, I was able to hit Ultra Nightmare without unkillable or block damage. Okay, so Stalwart is very good for that. Once you get unkillable and block damage, be a little bit more, you're not going to use it probably as much. I think this can be really helpful in the dungeons as well. So not just with Clan Boss. So if you're struggling with some of those later on dungeons, this can be a really great set just to progress through. If your team's, all the bosses do AoE damage, right? So if you're taking 30% less damage from the bosses, think about that. How often are your champions getting taken out in one shot by the bosses? This could be a set that could really help you. Once you get kind of more endgame, I think that this is not a set that most people will use except for maybe like really niche scenarios. But for progression, it can be really good. Reflex is a really good set. You can use it on a number of different champions. It's for those champions where they have like that one skill that you want them using over and over and over again. So my favorite for this is Coldheart because she has that nuke. I want her to be able to cycle through that as quickly as possible. So Reflex is really helpful. Another potential option would be someone like Stag Knight, where he does a drop defense and a drop attack on everybody. And if it's normally a 3-turn cooldown, so if you can get this to proc, then it becomes a 2-turn cooldown. And now he's keeping decreased attack and decreased defense up kind of the whole time. So that could be an option. I don't really use curing. I think it can maybe be good on certain scenarios. Cruel, we'll kind of cover some of this, and I think actually for the sake of time, I'm going to cover. Well, let's see. I might actually break this video up into a couple sections just so I can kind of go in depth. But actually, some of it. So, Immortal and Regeneration gear, they both heal by a percentage of your health, right? So a key thing that I'm going to be looking for in this gear is going to be HP percent in the substats. So again, watch my video on individual gear because a piece like this is really good, even though it's not necessarily great for the set. I'm just going to tell you which stats I am most looking for in this set. So mostly I'm using this on champions that I need to keep alive. So I am looking for defensive stats, HP percent, defense percent, maybe resistance, and sometimes accuracy because it can be good for other champions, but mostly those other ones, that HP percent, defense percent, especially HP percent, because that increases the amount of regeneration I'm getting. So if I'm running like a Team Reviver, say, like Duchess, in a regeneration set, regeneration heals by 10%, and if I can get her, or heals by 15%, my bad. If I can get her in, oh, here's a perfect piece. So we've got HP percent and speed, right? Because I want to get her as fast as possible, but we also want a lot of health so that way she's regenerating more. This is a great piece. Ideally, I'd love to switch the attack to defense. All right, in regeneration, this is not really what I'm looking for. Crit damage, I'm putting this on champions that I want to keep alive so that they can keep my team going. Not so much for damage champions. I mean, it could be helpful sometimes, but really, if I'm looking to keep a damage champion healed up, what would I use on them? I would use lifesteal, okay? So this set is really more for the champions that aren't going to be doing damage, but you want to keep them at full health. Okay. Kind of back up. Speed, really, I'm using speed gear on any type of champion, so any combination. So even if I'm getting a bunch of defensive stats, resistance, here we've got accuracy, HP percent, this is a solid piece. You know, here's attack and speed, so if I'm building a nuker, this could be a really good piece. So that's why I save so much speed gear, just because you're using it all over the place. Kind of the same with perception, really. But the big thing to look out for if you're on the fence, so let's see, what do we have with speed in the substats? Because a substat of speed in a speed set, why are you using a speed set? Because you need more speed. You know how else you can get more speed? Substats. So we want speed substats in the speed set. That is ideal. So like when I'm building Arbiter, and I just got Arbiter on this account. Where is she? She's not even fully leveled. So what do I put her in? I end up putting her all in speed gear. I am looking for pieces like this, right? Double roll on speed, double roll on speed. Only a one roll on speed. So ideally I want to see if I can find a chest piece that's got speed. Let's see, is there anything that can replace it in a speed set? No, I already tried rolling some of this stuff up. I could take this to 12 and see if I get lucky. Let's see, we can take it to 8 and see. Nope. But so if I'm in speed gear, I'm really looking for, so here's a double roll on speed. If I can get speed in a speed gear set, then the value goes up quite a bit. Same basic rule of thumb for these other stat sets, right? Like if I'm looking for crit damage, it helps to have what? Crit damage. Or actually, perhaps even better, it could be crit rate, because if I'm going crit damage, then I'm going to want to use crit damage gloves. So that means I'm going to have to get up to 100% crit rate with substats. So if I'm assessing my crit damage gear, I'm going to look for a crit rate substat, because that's really going to help me. And so again, crit damage is more of a damage type of thing. So you can use it on an HP-based champion or a defense-based champion, but typically I'm using this more on attack-based champions. So if this was attack percent instead of HP percent, the value would kind of go up a little bit, but a lot of times you need more HP percent if you're gearing champions that are going to be getting hit anyways. So that's a very good piece there. Here we've got crit rate. I've got the crit rate selected, right? Crit rate, crit damage, perfect. Accuracy, again, you want to look for things like accuracy and speed, right? So if you need accuracy, what do you want? More accuracy. Resistance, resistance, resistance. End game resistance is such a key stat, but the requirements are so high. So if I'm assessing my resistance gear, honestly, if there's not resistance in the substats, I'm probably going to discard it unless it's a really good piece on its own. So like this piece, I probably wouldn't use for the set as much as I'm just going for a nuker, right? I've got flat attack, attack percent, crit rate, crit damage. That's a perfect piece for a nuker. For like a go first arena, don't want them getting hit. Give them as much damage as possible, right? Let's see, kind of again here, sort of same concept, although it's defense percent on gloves. But so like this shield has the resistance on there. That's what I'm looking for. And typically, more often with resistance, I'm building champions that are going to be tankier. So defense and HP percent is probably of more value in a resistance set than say crit rate and crit damage. Lifesteal is based on damage, so I would say potentially going damage stats can be good, but usually you're trying to stay alive as well, so you kind of need the survivability as well. And again, lifesteal sort of falls off once you kind of try and hit the higher levels. Although there are some times where it is really good. So like, for example, I used lifesteal gear to help me 3-star faction wars because I had factions where I didn't have really a good revive champion. So the nukers would keep dropping, but what I did is I switched them over to lifesteal gear, and that way they stayed full health for the most part, and they didn't drop. So that allowed me to 3-star. But what you can do there, especially if it's just for that one particular type, is you get like 1, maybe 2 really good sets, and you just swap it around your different champions as you complete the various factions. Days is not a set that I really like, so I would basically just keep the pieces for their individual merits. I never really use the set. Again, regeneration, you're looking primarily for defensive stats. So HP, resistance, defense, and speed. Shield set. So again, shield scales from ally HP. So my main thing I will look for, here we've got HP %. Great. What have we got here? So crit damage, crit rate is good, but really the big thing I'm looking for here is HP %, because I'm going to probably be putting this on an HP champion. So their damage is quite likely going to scale from HP. The bigger HP pool gives them a bigger shield. So, mostly in a shield set, I'm looking for HP, maybe some defense to give survivability, and speed. Potentially some accuracy can be good, but mostly it's those 3, because I'm going to be putting it mostly on an HP champion who needs to survive. Relentless. So again, Relentless is one of those sets that I use on a number of different types of champions. So therefore, honestly, any of the combinations, damage based, survivability based, even a combo. Like, so for some PvE content like Ninja, if I'm running him in Hydra, I want him to be able to survive. So I want him with plenty of defense and health and attack and crit rate and crit damage and speed, and oh, did we mention accuracy? And if we could get resistance, great. So we kind of want everything there. So I'm really lenient when it comes to my Relentless gear. So really anything in Relentless gear can be helpful. But again, you'd want to look for, like, does it have percentages in there? Because if it's got a bunch of flat stats, probably not really what you're looking for. The set itself is not really specific to a type of champion, okay? As opposed to Savage, ignores 25% of enemy defense. I would never put this on, say, Arbiter. I would never put this on, like the support champions. Potentially some defense and HP champions can hit pretty hard, but really the main champion that I'm gearing in Savage is going to be attack. So I want attack, crit rate, crit damage, speed. Typically, this is something that I'm putting on a nuker, so I'm probably not going to worry as much about the accuracy. There could be a few champions like Seer is one. Do I have her in Savage? I think I do have her in Savage. I need to actually go and rebuild her. This is an old build. But so she needs accuracy to remove the buffs, which is where she gets a big chunk of her damage. So her specifically is a little different. I'd actually go more probably with like HP to an extent, because most of her damage is coming from how many buffs she's taking off, and it's based off enemy max HP. So I still want crit stats, so I've got her with crit rate gloves. I really need to rebuild her. I'm looking for crit damage, speed, but she also needs the accuracy in this case. But for the most part, if I am building an attack-based nuker champion, so here we have Siegehawk, again, old build. I'm looking for attack %, I'm looking for speed, I'm looking for crit rate, and I think I did go hybrid with accuracy on him as well. But so typically it's those key stats, the damage stats, right? And then speed. You're always wanting speed. Destroy set. I do advise keeping a few of these around so that you can get through the Scarab boss in Doom Tower hard. My personal favorite champion for that is Arminger, who is a defense-based champion. If you don't want to build a second Arminger, you can kind of just, I would just say take your best pieces And so if I'm building Arminger, this is a perfect piece. It's got speed, defense, crit rate, crit damage. Ideally, we want to get him some accuracy as well, so keep an eye out for that. Honestly, probably the best way to get through that boss is 2 Armingers in a destroy set, and then have everybody else just be there to protect. Um, it makes it just so much easier. So I would say keep 2 sets of this. Beyond the Scarab boss, I don't really see a use for this particular set. All right. Stun set is very useful, but the stats are just kind of general. Whatever's going to be best for your build. You want it on a champion that has an AoE, A1, or multiple AoE attacks at least. Stalwart. So again, Stalwart, really good to help with passing Clan Boss early on. And again, the main thing you're looking for is to survive. So even on some of the attack-based champions, if you're trying to survive Clan Boss, Ultra Nightmare, you need defense, you need HP, you're going to need some speed to get to the right speed levels. And if you're going to be putting debuffs, you're going to need accuracy. So those would kind of be the main things. Crit rate is good. Typically, if I'm building a team in Stalwart, I'm not as concerned about the crit damage or the attack. I'm just going to trust that my team can do enough damage by getting as many procs for like a War Master. Ideally, we do want to have 100% crit rate. That'll help a lot. And just whatever crit damage we can throw in, fine. But the main thing is you want to last longer and longer into the fight. So we're looking primarily for defensive stats. Probably not as much resistance unless you're going up against some of the bosses and you really want to resist their debuffs. But a lot of the bosses will throw out debuffs that you can't even resist. So resistance, I'd say, probably not as good. And Hydra, some of the Hydra heads are AoE, some of them are single target. So this isn't helping you against the single target. So I'd say probably better off just going with stats for Hydra build. Reflex, again, my favorite is Coldheart, so I'm looking for things like speed, accuracy, crit stats. Attack is not as important on her, but if you've got another champion that you want them cycling through that one ability again, you just kind of cater the stats to that champion. This can be really good for support champions if they have like one skill that you want to be using over and over again. Maybe Brogni might be an option where he can reuse his shield and his block debuffs over and over again a little bit faster. Or for some clan boss builds, you would actually want to be using his A2. You turn off his A3, and then he just keeps the shield built up the whole time if you have buff extenders. Curing, I'm not really going to go into. Cruel, again, this is an attack-based set, so I'm looking mostly to build attack-based nuke champions. So that's kind of when the value will go up. Again, a piece like this is not something I'd be looking to use so much in the set itself, but we've got HP percent, we've got resistance, we've got accuracy. This is great for a debuffer who I might want to bring in against Hydra, who just has to survive, resist, and place, okay? So again, the individual stats, but in a set like this, I'm looking for here, speed on the boots, great. We've got crit rate, we've got attack percent, we've got crit damage. This is amazing piece of gear. Immortal, again, we kind of covered that already. These divine sets, kind of same. They're all based off those, one main attribute. Swift Parry is a very, very good set. I don't use it a ton. This is more like a arena nuker type of champion. It can be good to, like, it could be really annoying to go against like a Duchess or another Team Reviver in this where you think you've got them down and then the unkillable procs. But really, we're talking about like the crit damage bonus here. Mostly, I'm just looking to put this on my nuker champions. So what am I looking for here outside of individual pieces? If I'm looking to use this in a set, I want speed, I want damage, I want critical stats, potentially accuracy. So one of my favorite champions that I run in this set is Mashald, right? He's got really devastating debuffs, but he hits hard too. And so I need the accuracy on him as well. And there's been times where when the unkillable procs, like my team gets wiped out by the enemy nuker, but his unkillable goes off, and then he's able to come back, and just because of how Mashald is wired, he can come back and win the battle. Let's see. Deflection, again, we're kind of looking for more survivability stats. Resilience. Resilience is actually kind of cool because it gives you a little bit of HP and defense. So if I'm building even an attack-based champion, this can be really helpful if I think that they might be taking some hits. So really any of those main build combinations, the value in this set goes up. So that's why I oftentimes have quite a bit of it, and I do use this set quite a bit. That said, I can certainly afford to sell quite a bit of this, especially in the shield department. Perception, again, one of my favorite sets. I have a ton of it. A lot of this is laziness. A lot of it is my inability to part with gear that I might, but probably never will use. But again here, so what am I looking for? So perception I use all the time. It gives the accuracy boost, it gives the speed boost, so ideally having those two things in the substats, but especially like HP percent. I'll go attack percent like if the stats are really good, but then I'm more just looking at the stats. But a lot of times I like having the champions that I need to put the debuffs need to have some survivability. So like in chess pieces, I'm mostly looking for HP percent. So this is a great piece. Excuse me. Attack percent, this can be a great piece for an attack champion, especially someone maybe like Ninja who needs to be able to land their debuffs. So really, perception gear, the stats are kind of all over the place. Again, you want to pay attention to those main groups. Affinity Breaker, I don't really use. Untouchable, I haven't really used much. Fatal. Fatal's nice. Again, this is like an attack-based nuker type of build. Bloodthirst, basically same concept as Lifesteal gear. Guardian. Guardian's a little unique, so the wearer is absorbing 10% of all damage to all allies, so it's basically a built-in ally protect that's passive and is always there. That means that my champion in Guardian gear is going to be taking damage. So I want to make sure that they can take damage. So we want as much HP as possible. We want some defense. Depending on what the champion's got, you might want to look at going crit rate. So for a little while, I was running Versolf, who's an HP-based champion with good, solid defense, but he also hits hard. So I wanted him with crit rate. I wanted him with some accuracy, but mostly in here, if I can find defense and HP percent on a piece, the value goes up significantly. And unfortunately, I'm not really seeing that here now. There's HP percent, so that's good. Protection, again, so this is kind of like more of something that I would be putting on a buffer, especially if I was to go with all 6 pieces. So I would be going with my standard buffer build, which would be more of HP, defense, speed, ideally resistance, and that's exactly what this piece gives. Stone Skin, again, it just depends on what champion you're doing. I think, a Stone Skin nuker could be good because then they can't take out the nuker. Probably if you've been around a little while, you've seen the Stone Skin Cardinals, in which case you just want like the survivability, the HP defense. Resistance is going to be really helpful on here because they're probably going to be trying to pull this buff off of you. So if you're going up against Madame Cirrus or another buff remover champion, just be prepared for that. So going with extra resistance is going to be helpful with this particular set. Instinct, again, is a damage-based set. Primarily, I am looking for attack-based attacks or damage stats. Though this could be good on other more defense-based champions. Again, if you have a good defense nuker or something. But probably I'd tend to look more for the attack. So a piece like this, great speed, attack, crit damage. Some of this, I'll use this. So we got crit rate, great. I don't have a ton of instinct gear on this account because I didn't pay the money to get the bonus sets. All right, so hope that this was helpful, that this gives you some ideas in terms of assessing your sets specifically. Again, I did another video kind of covering more of the substats, and I'm going to do potentially a few more videos covering the various champion types and how to gear them. I'm going to be doing an account takeover for my friend, and I'm going to be re-gearing some of his champions, so that will be coming up soon. Hope that you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.